If you've been a Transformers fan for even one hot second, then you probably realize that a lot of fans take issue with the whole notion of parts forming. They don't like it, they feel like it's kind of a cop-out and a fake. Why would you have to take parts off in order for your favorite characters to transform? That's kind of cheating the system and turning it more into something akin to building bricks, Legos if you will, than it is a actual transformation. Well, that's not to say all of them turn out poorly. That's not to say that all of them kind of don't justify it to some degree. In fact, some parts formers are fantastic. And herein lies this week's countdown as voted on by fans. This will be the top 10 Transformers parts formers. That's going to be our focus this time around in the latest GotBot Counts Down. Hey, one hail, welcome back to the channel. I'm your host, your most humble of hosts, Dennis Moulton, aka GotBot. As always, man, please like, comment, share, of course, subscribe, and while you are at it, let him up, baby. Hit that notification bell, please. It helps me out a ton, and it lets you know when content of all sorts goes up here on the channel. Check out Machinery of Man, The Everything Factor, all the groups that I'm either a mod or an admin for, as well as all of my social media links. All of that's in the description down below. As well, if you're in a position to help the channel to grow, you can use the donate link, check us out on Patreon, see what we have to offer to you through spring, or of course hit the join button at any given time and become a channel member. And this, of course, is a countdown of the best parts formers in all of Transformers. And that's a lot. There are tons of parts formers across all iterations of the franchise. Some really don't work well. Some work pretty splendidly. There were a ton of votes, and the voting didn't exactly go as I originally anticipated it would, because I thought that there was going to be a specific and very, very heavy stance to a lot of the early G1 models where you had to put on fists or you had to pop on a head or some such thing. Well, some of that's there, but it's certainly not all of it. Here are our 3 honorable mentions. The first one comes to us from the Unicron trilogy, being Tidal Wave. Yeah, Tidal Wave splits into 3 parts. The robot itself cannot exist without all 3 of those parts. Absolutely. Tidal Wave turns into the Dark Fleet, and the Dark Fleet unites together to become Tidal Wave. It's not a combiner because we don't have kind of separate characters like we do with, say, Devastator. In this case, they're all parts of Tidal Wave's body that come together to give us that behemoth. Also, from something very recent, the Kingdom line, the Fossilizers, Paleotrex in particular had votes, and going to G1, G1 Starscream had votes. Of course, because of the fists, because of the little, I guess, wings on the feet, like you can just turn them up, but a lot of people, because they don't want to see the hollow part, take them off and kind of switch sides. And of course, the wings, while you can just rotate them around, a lot of people tend to take the wings off of that, like that plain fuselage body, and turn them around and peg them back in. There's a whole lot of pegging going on with G1 Starscream. Those 3, the honorable mentions, they did not make the list at all. So who did? You know what we're going to do? We're going to do as we always do, and we're going to kick things off with number 10, Burst. Coming in at number 10, I thought was a really interesting vote by way of Battle Trap, specifically the G1 Battle Trap. Now this one actually wouldn't count. This is the Titans Return version, but it's the only one that I have. This one wouldn't count because this is actually 2 separate characters that combine together to give us one character. The Rise of the Beast Terracon Battle Trap wouldn't count because it's one character who is just a truck. However, if we go back to G1, Battle Trap is made up of a top and a bottom, and the bottom becomes, you know, the truck piece, the top becomes the helicopter piece, but they have to go together to give us one full sentient robot. Yes, Battle Trap. The dude splits in 2 for his alt mode, but he unites together to be one solid robot. One consciousness, one character, one guy. G1, Duocon Battle Trap takes the number 10 slot. Coming in at number 9, some of the votes for this guy referred to like his G1 version, but most of them, the vast majority, referred to his more updated version. Number 9 is Fasttrack. To be fair, Black Rorichi also had a vote. But it's Fasttrack. Now, this is the Kingdom version. I think it was Kingdom. Maybe it was Earthrise. Maybe it was Earthrise Fasttrack. Some people said the G1, but a lot of people said, look, the Earthrise version. The dude splits into a whole bunch of pieces. You can put him on other characters. You do need to take him apart and put pieces in alternate locations to get the six-wheel tank mode, I guess. Or, of course, you could take his bits and pieces off and actually attach them in various locations on Scorponok, who, of course, he's intended to pair with, really. The weaponizer gimmick was a tremendous leap forward for partsformers, and Fasttrack is one of the fan-favorite versions of the weaponizer partformers. Yeah, whether we're going to his alt mode, whether we're putting him on Scorponok, or whether we're attaching his bits and pieces to another Deluxe or Voyager or whatever size class character, Fasttrack takes the number 9 slot. Number 8 takes us back to G1 once again, and the duocons once again with Skytread, or Flywheels if you prefer. And this one, unlike the Titan's Return version, this one actually is kind of a true blue duocon, right? If you take this guy apart, his bottom half becomes a tank, the top half becomes a plane. Neither one of them have their own robot mode. If you just transform the plane, you get part of a robot. If you just transform the pants, you get part of a robot. They have to go together. The parts, get it? Parts have to go together to give us this entire robot. The ultimate in partsformers, the duocons, and this guy takes the number 8 slot. Now at number 7 we have a character where the voting was a little precarious for, so let me explain. We had one single vote for a G1 version of this character. We had one single vote for an Armada version of this character, but the majority were split evenly to give us a tie between these two versions of that character. Of course, I'm talking about none other than Optimus Prime, specifically the RID 2001 and the Cybertron version. The RID 2001, of course, combines a smaller robot with the entire cab to get you a much larger super mode. In fact, we all know that the 2001 can go even a step further than that and combine with the Ultra Magnus to be like that Ultra Prime mode. But even without that, just in and of himself, to be a regular mode and a super mode, complete partsformer, where his trailer comes apart and goes on his boots and shoulders and everything else. As for the Cybertron version, same sort of thing. We have a cab that's the sort of base robot, very well articulated, that's great. But then the entire trailer all comes apart and becomes bits and pieces and blasters and cannons and stuff that go all over his body. There was a vote for the Armada because, of course, he goes again with his trailer, especially with the new Legacy Evolution version. And there was a vote for G1, if for no other reason than you got to put his fists in. And how many of us lost those little fists growing up? A lot of versions of Optimus Prime. None of them got a ton of votes, but the ones that did, I understand why. As for the two to my left, those two absolutely, positively were split down the middle enough that here, at number 7, we have a tie. RID 2001 or Cybertron Optimus Prime takes the number 7 slot. Number 6 really does stick with the whole weaponizer idea, and Slammer. This is the Kingdom Slammer. He pairs with the Generations Metroplex from a decade ago now. Wow, a decade ago. Wild. Of course, he turns into a tank. You do need to parts form him a bit to accomplish that because, for example, part of his treads are on his back here, right? Yes, like the other weaponizers and stuff, he can come apart, and he can also go attached to other characters as bits and pieces and armor and like, I guess, battle pieces and stuff. The treads can come up off the side of his back and go together to give him like a chainsaw type of melee accessory. Or, of course, the guy can also become some bits and pieces to become a whole new tower to attach to the city mode of Metroplex. So whether you're attaching him as a tower, attaching him to another character's bits and pieces, going to his tank mode, or going back to his robot mode, the weaponizer known as Slammer from the Kingdom line takes the number 6 slot. And now, of course, with bated breath, a hush falls over the crowd as we reach the most coveted of locations, the ever-popular halfway mark. And at the halfway mark this time, we're again sticking with the whole weaponizer, fossilizer gimmick by way of, well, the bits and pieces here of Sixgun. And if we go back to G1, he split into 6 guns. If we go with the Titan's Return, no, not Titan's Return, Siege? Was it Siege? Version. He turns into a number of bits and pieces. Like here's part of his leg that can become like a boot. Here's one of his arms, and yes, we do have a blaster back here. This is like his main torso, and I attached that to like the big red blaster, but we have another couple of like molded in blasters right here in the white. Here's like his main torso. These 4 finger blasters, I guess we're gonna call them, because you can make a great big hand out of it. And they do become fingers, but all 4 of them are also blasters. They're like on his back by rights, like this is his torso, so to speak. Or you could even go with the third-party Iron Factory Turrets Manacle. This is the upper body of turrets, I think. In this case, the legs come off, and he actually turns into 4 different blasters. This guy turns into probably 6. The original certainly turns into 6, hence the namesake. Whether G1, whether third party, whether updated official, any version of Sixgun that you want to reference, yeah, the dude takes the number 5 slot. And here we are at number 4, and number 4 I actually put kind of votes for 2 characters together because they're essentially the same sort of mold. Not the same character, but the same sort of mold by way of God Ginrai, or the full-on Apex Armor Power Master Optimus Prime, whatever you want to call it. And while I know that they're 2 like different iterations of the character, the molds tend to be the same for the most part. If we go right back to G1, we know that you could have the cab, or you could put the cab with the trailer, and we even know in Japan you could get the God Bomber and attach that. Let's fast forward to the Titan's Return Legends line, where we got a North American version of Power Master Optimus Prime that, interestingly enough, didn't have the small robot and really wasn't a partsformer. And in Japan, kind of the same thing, but you could change it. I, for example, took the cab out and I put in the like Perfect Effect, actually the KBB KO of the Perfect Effect cab to give him his cab. By rights, he should have the engine block be its own piece. By rights, it's his own character, but the dude can't really transform without it. Or, in this case, the updated version, the full updated Legends God Bomber, the dude's a complete partsformer, going to any mode, going to his bases, or going attached to this guy. So God Bomber, in particular, is a partsformer. When we talk about the full God Ginrai, all of the God Bomber armor is parts forming. The engine block is parts forming. And if you got rid of the stock cab and you put on the KBB / Perfect Effect cab, that in and of itself is a separate piece as well. Parts forming everywhere up the yin yang for God Ginrai and Power Master Optimus Prime. And that's why he takes the number 4 slot. Now, number 3 is one that comes with a little bit of a caveat, so I have to specify, because number 3 is Overlord. But specifically, it has to be the Titan's Return Overlord, because if we go all the way back to G1, or even if we go to the Japanese version of this, we know that the upper body, the plane, I think is the upper body, that's, you know, Giga or Mega. The bottom is Giga or Mega. They're like 2 humans, they're 2 separate characters that come together to become Overlord. In essence, could be called a combiner. With the Legends update, it was really homaging that from the G1 Japanese fiction. However, the Titan's Return was his own separate dude, and he actually appeared in the Machinima series as really one of, if not the main antagonist. In that, he was not made up of Giga and Mega, and I don't think in the IDW comics he was made up of Giga and Mega. However, his body, taking the duocon idea, still splits into 2 alt modes, being tank pants and plain upper body. Just like with the duocons, this specific iteration and interpretation of the character counts because they're both the consciousness of Overlord. They're the same guy. It's not two separate characters, two separate consciousnesses coming together to give a bigger robot a la combiners. In this case, it's the bigger robot being the same guy and being in two places at once with both alt modes. The ultimate in parts forming. Again, the whole duocon gimmick lends nicely to it. And Overlord, this version of Overlord takes the number 3 slot. Now number 2, we actually have a number of votes that kind of got put together here, so to speak. There were a few votes for the G1 version of this guy. There was a single vote for the New Age version of this guy. There were a few votes for the Siege, a few votes for the Earthrise. There were a number of votes really for the RID 2001 version, and there was even a vote for a combined version. I'm talking, of course, about Ultra Magnus. Now, we could be talking about the... It's funny, because this is actually the Combiner Wars version, and by rights he's not a parts former, but I have replaced the cab with the Perfect Effect version. I have also got a couple of other add-on kits here and whatnot. So like he is to a point now where the cab is separate from the trailer, so he is in fact a parts former. But the G1, the epitome of parts former, the cab needed the white Optimus fists, then you had to attach the cab to the trailer to get the kind of full robot mode, so to speak. Even the head was a piece that slid down over the top. If we go to RID 2001, people said, look, the guy is a parts former because you take parts apart when you're going between modes, but more importantly, we really want to kind of vote for the RID 2001 version because of Ultra Prime. And a lot of people said Ultra Prime. They voted specifically for Ultra Prime and said that character would be a combiner. I said that, or that character would be a parts former. I said that doesn't really count because it's really Optimus and Ultra Magnus combined, so that's more a combiner than a parts former. But I get and I appreciate it. It's, you know, again, it's sort of like with the weaponizers. Like, one could say that they're combined, but they're not so much combining. It's not like a gestalt, right? It's more that they just become, like, again, armor for stuff. Well, a similar sort of thing here. In essence, what you have is the main cab, and all of his, like, Magnus trailer is really known as his Magnus armor, right? He puts it on to bulk himself up because it's all pieces. The G1, the RID, the Earthrise, the Siege, all of them, any of them, the third parties, a bunch of the like third-party masterpiece. I think the actual masterpiece, maybe, but I'm not 100% sure on that. And the New Age. In fact, the New Age, if I'm not mistaken, just recently decided like they're putting out the armor in 2 variants that will go on like the little white Optimus that was a repaint of the New Age Optimus. Yeah, Ultra Magnus. Whatever form tickles your fancy, man, he takes, as a parts former, the number 2 slot. And here we are now, tippy top number 1. Actual number 1 is probably the ultimate in parts forming, largely because in alt mode, as is the case, for example, with the duocons and whatnot, there are multiple parts to this character. Additionally, even in the animation, when we see this character transform, it is not unheard of. It was done many times where you would actually see all of the separate parts kind of magically go through the air to come together to form the gigantic robot known as, Omega Supreme. We all know Omega is a track with a tank. We all know he's a shuttle. If you go back to the original G1 Omega Supreme, even to put his legs together, you got to put parts on the side, a piece down the front, 2 pieces on the back, another couple of ankle pieces inside, the foot goes up, all of that, separate pieces for the leg. We know that this version of him, tons of parts come off, the leg covers come off, the arms come off, the entire backpack comes off. Even with the War for Cybertron version, while most of him is not a parts former, the arms and stuff still come off there, and yes, the tank torso can still come out. Yeah, Omega Supreme. Probably the first, probably the ultimate in being a parts former, and he takes easily the number 1 slot. 10 down to 1 once again, and I thought the voting was very interesting with how people interpreted this question. I honestly believed that we were going to get a ton of G1 votes for things like Trailbreaker with his spring-loaded fists, or I thought a lot of it was going to be based on G1 fists, to be honest with you. Like Grapple, same thing with the fists and whatnot, right? But I'm happy to see that people went with it and said, you know what? What about all of the like weaponizers and fossilizers? They're all parts formers. They all come apart. A lot of times to go from one mode to another, you have to take them apart. It just so happens that they can interact with other things. Characters that also got votes that did not appear on the list or in the honorable mentions would include G1 Skywarp. He had a couple of votes, as did G2 Ramjet. G1 Gunrunner had some votes. Scraphook had some votes, though you can transform Scraphook without any other parts. But you know what? Maybe you don't want all of his parts to go together, right? We know that there's a number of modes that can be fan done there because of parts forming. Brunt. Another great example. Earthrise Cliffjumper, of course, because of his back, though you can get an upgrade kit to kind of get rid of that parts forming piece. G1 Scamper, apparently his arms come off and go like up on the roof of the car. I didn't know that. I don't really know G1 Scamper that well. Ultra Prime I mentioned. Wingfinger, the Earthrise Grease Pit. Who else do we have here? Black Rorichi I had mentioned. Cog. Sky Shadow, the Titan's Return. Sky Shadow, much the same as the Overlord, for example. Magmatron, Beast Wars Magmatron. I like that one too. Somebody said, even though we don't have a plastic version of this, Violent Jiger, because he's made up of like 3 insect things, basically. The Power of the Primes Leader Evolution Optimus Prime. I like that one. I thought that was a very interesting one too. A vote for the Micromaster Rocket Base. Absolutely yes. 1,000,000,000%. Crash Bar, Airwave, G1 Octane, and I like this one. Comes from the Fossilizers once again with Master Dominus. Was part of one of those Wreckers 2 packs, if I'm not mistaken. I think it came with Leadfoot. Those and even more. Parts forming. You know what? A lot of people got gripes with it, but maybe we shouldn't, because there are so many wonderful characters that do resort to parts forming to pull off their robot mode and or their alt mode. And you know what? Some of them, very successful fan favorites. Let me know if your favorites were mentioned here, if your favorites made the list or not. I appreciate you guys coming by, giving me some of your extremely valuable time. I do know how important it is to you. If you're in a position to help the channel to grow, you can use the donate link. Check us out on Patreon. See what we have to offer to you through Spring, or of course hit the join button at any given time and become a channel member. Don't forget to please hit the subscribe button. Stick around. Have some fun with us here on the channel. And especially don't forget, man, that somehow, some way, each and every single solitary day, you right there, you do make a difference in the world. And I look forward to the next time that you and I get together to have another visit, either in the live streams on Thursday nights at the stop motion premieres or the old fashioned way right here inside the videos.